Hi everyone and welcome to Bear Clooney Watches channel. Bear is back. I was gone for a while, not because it's a amazing genius marketing trick, but rather because with the pandemic kind of ending, my business is booming and I am extremely busy. Also, my ability to travel has improved. So you know what? There is a slightly less time for the YouTube channel, but I am not going anywhere. I enjoy this channel. I enjoy talking about watches and various topics from watch industry. So I am here to stay. Now, today's presentation of the watch is actually very special to me, and it goes beyond the watch itself. It truly has a lot to do with emotion and what this watch represents to me. Where does it take me emotionally? How do I perceive this watch? And you know, sometimes in our hobby, we encounter those moments and they're very special. They're watches that we associate with somebody or some events in our lives, which makes it additionally special in our eyes. And this watch is exactly that. Omega Seamaster Railmaster is a watch that I tend to relate and associate with my father. And my dad, God bless him, is going to be 85 years old this coming July 19th. So in a way, this presentation and this watch are tribute to my dad, who was frankly always my role model. I feel that there is a story behind this watch which I can relate to him. You see, this watch is first issued in 1957, and it was the reference CK2914. Primarily, this watch was issued to resist electromagnetic fields and its effect on the watches that it might have. So it had a Faraday cage, which movement was hidden, and it could sustain high electromagnetic fields. Watch was not as successful. It's truly a tool watch, and primarily it was used in the areas which are affected by high electromagnetic fields. So that was the intention and purpose of the watch. And one sector, one area where this watch is quite closely associated with is the railroad workers and anything relevant to the railroads. So this is where my connection comes with my dad. My dad was a surveyor engineer, very passionate about his job, very good in his job, and he spent all his life surveying railroads. Summer times when I was not in school, I would go with my dad, and those were very special moments. He would spend a whole week, by the way, working away from the family on the railroads throughout Serbia and Montenegro. And his primary focus in his career was surveying the famous railroad that connected two great Serbian nations, Serbia and Montenegro, from Belgrade, where I was born and lived, to Bar, which was on the seaside on the Adriatic Sea in Montenegro. This railroad was a true challenge in every aspect of building something like that. It was going through so many tunnels, bridges, and that introduction to today's video actually features what was at one time tallest railroad bridge in the world, Mala Rijeka, small river. And my dad actually worked on that. He worked on that railroad. He surveyed that railroad, and I spent summers with him walking 50 to 100 kilometers, honestly, like side by side in silence. Just looking at my dad, you know, who appeared so large, not in the physical aspect only, but also as a person. I looked up to him, and I was trying to keep up with him. I was trying always to impress him. I was always trying so hard to be worthy of my dad's respect. And that's been driving me throughout my whole life. You know, this watch, this railroad Seamaster Railmaster, Omega, makes that emotional, physical connection. You know, the moments when you smell something and it brings you in a childhood, or you see something and it brings you in a childhood. Well, when I look at this dial, when I look at this watch, and when I'm influenced by its meaning and what the purpose was and what it represents, and this dial that has this rust element in it, it brings those memories, you know, sun coming down, and we're walking down the railroad, and I see a rust color in a distance, and I see and smell that specific iron smell of the railroads, and just hearing steps, my dad's steps and my steps in sync, walking down that railroad, symbolically walking through life in sync. You know, my dad is my role model for so many reasons. For his integrity, honesty, hard work, dedication, and loyalty to a family. Those are some values that I carry with me through my life. And you know, when you encounter something that it's on your wrist and you love as a hobby and you enjoy because you love the watches, and then that in addition to it connects you to something so special, that becomes very unique and very important. However, I'm going now to go back from my emotion and just talk about the watch itself. So I invite you in my Bear Watch studio to take a closer look of this watch and understand the beauty in something so simple, so rustic looking, so beautiful. So let's not waste any more time. For those complaining that my videos are too long, jump in my studio and we'll take a closer look at this watch. Thank you. And here we are at Bear Clooney Watches studio. As usually, I try to achieve certain atmosphere with my props that are supposed to relate this watch to something that I feel. You might have a different perception, different view, but for me, Omega Seamaster Railmaster is a watch that connects me with my dad, who was working on railroads, and I feel that this timepiece is in certain ways a wonderful tribute to anyone that has ever worked on the railroads. Now, the watch itself actually has certain elements that I don't favor as a watch collector, and I tend to stay away from. Let me start with a faux patina. I usually do not favor watches with faux patina, but in this case, similar to my Omega Seamaster James Bond No Time to Die, the faux patina kind of contributes to the aesthetic appeal of this watch. And I think it's quite attractive. It also gives the watch the feel of a vintage appeal. And I think it's beautiful. In my eyes, this dial with this faux patina brings this memory of rust haze above the railroads. If you ever walked down the railroads at the sundown or sunrise, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. That feel of a rust haze just kind of above, between the sky and the railroad itself. So it's a very special aesthetic appeal to me. The other thing that I'm usually not big fan of is non-tapering bracelets. And in this case, it actually doesn't bother me because bracelet is nicely balanced to the watch, which is 40 millimeter. And I think it suits the look of it. So as the proper utility watch, I think it doesn't get to a point that I find it obstruction as non-tapering bracelet. I mentioned the size of the watch, 40 millimeter. It's pretty much perfect for this style of the watch. The case is pretty much identical in a form to Aquaterra, except for the finishing. While the Aquaterra is all about polished lines and reflected light, the Railmaster is kind of muted and matte, primarily because of its satin brushed finish. And you know what? That perfectly fits this watch. And I love that watch is satin brushed all over. It just gives the watch this subtle tool-like feel. The other thing that is kind of interesting of this watch that I love is the conical shaped, kind of muffin looking crown. And it's quite easy to use, which is certainly a plus in my book. The lugs are that sweeping style, you know what I mean, twisted style. It's quite unique for Omega. The case is rated to 150 meters, and the case is not very thick. It's not sitting high. It's a 12 millimeter thickness, which I think is for the tool watch quite perfect. The case back in this case is solid, and you know what? I do like displaying the Omega movements. I appreciate them, but this is quite beautiful. I think it looks fantastic, and I actually prefer this on this watch. So the case back, as you can see, is solid. It's engraved with the everyone that loves Omega's favorite mythological creature, the hippocampus. It is quite adding to the appeal of this watch, in my humble opinion. Now, the most beautiful part of this watch, in my opinion, but let me say one more thing that I'm not usually a fan of, is painted dials. No applications on the dials, primarily painted indices, you know. However, again, in this case, it achieves this whole vintage appeal. The dial itself is, I don't know, it's like gorgeous. It's like a scratched, brushed metal base that gives a very distinct look in this black dial. By the way, they come in a gray dial as well, and it's beautiful, but I think it's just much nicer and much more rudimentary and much more with a railroad DNA in this gray dark dial. Then you see these arrowhead vintage toned Lume markers. The paint isn't applied on the top of the dial, but rather recessed into it. So it gives a nice neater look. It's kind of cleaner, if you know what I mean. Now we have the obviously Omega logo. We have the movement spec text is there, as you could expect, and the beautifully written Railmaster in the old school font that actually matches this vintage Lume. So this is quite nicely aesthetically resolved. The other thing is this Explorer like Arabic numerals with 3, 6, and 9, which give a nice balance to the watch. Another thing I just adore about this watch, I love, is the lollipop second hand. I love the hands on this watch altogether. I think they're beautiful hands. And I do appreciate the dial. I really love the legibility on this watch. I love how it looks. And then finally, no date. No date is a very interesting concept for us watch geeks, for us watch fans, you know. A regular person would say, well, I prefer to have a date. I want to see what date it is. You know, we tend to be sometimes very exhausted and tired in this hobby with complications. It's so refreshing when we put a watch on the wrist that is time only. Just wind and go. It's a quite treat for us. It's almost like taking a horological break, for a lack of a better word. And this watch, being a time only, being such a nice legible piece, being so subtle, is a quite great choice for everyday piece. I think it's a very Exploresque, for lack of a better word. So for anyone that appreciates Explorer, and considering now that they have shrunk to 36mm, which in Bayer's humble opinion is just too small for modern wrist of the man, I would say this is a quite excellent alternative. The other minus of this watch, I think the retail is too high for what this watch is. But I'm sure that you can find it discounted, you can find it on the secondary market, and you can achieve a proper value at this for this timepiece. Now, the movement here is absolutely impressive. Basically, all modern Omega movements are, you know, some of best of the business, hands down. The accuracy and rigorous testing that their master chronometer movements are held accountable is impressive. And this is a caliber 8806. That's absolutely no exception. You know, I think that it is a watch that will be appreciated by those who love utility style timepieces of high quality. Now, when it comes to the clasp, there is a little bit of interesting thing that I want to mention. You have to kind of actually think before you close. So this side has to go first, and then you lock it. If you go opposite, it will not let you do. So if you go this first and now you try to close, it overlaps. It's a nice clasp. It's a nice bracelet, well done. I love that it's fully brushed. I'm not a big fan of some Omega bracelets, but this could be my favorite Omega bracelet, actually, to be honest with you, aesthetically, quality-wise. And here is how the watch wears on my 7.25 inches wrist. Thickness is quite nice. The watch has a nice subtle presence on the wrist. It's a little bit too big for me. I need to adjust it. It's another thing that I'm complaining, that this watch does not have easy adjustment. You actually have to take the links out. So I will do that. But overall, the watch is just wonderful on the wrist, wears really comfortably, and I think it looks fantastic. For anyone that loves the Explorer style watches, this watch is perfect choice. And for anyone that appreciates subtle utility timepieces with high quality movement, high quality case, high quality bracelet, you will be impressed. And also it will appeal to those who love the touch of vintage DNA. So there you go. That's it about the watch itself. I would Now, I'm going to turn the light off to show you the actual lume on this timepiece. I had to go to my dark room just to show you the lume because it was too much light in a Bear Clooney's watch studio. And here is the lume. And frankly, with this lume, with the brushed bracelet, with the brushed case, with the time only, and 150-meter water resistance, this is perfect sport watch. Truly is. Going back to Bear Clooney's cave to wrap up this video. At the end, I hope you enjoyed the presentation of this watch. I just want to highlight once again that in this hobby, it's not all about the movements and design and value and commodity exchange and flexing. There is emotion. There is always something special, something that triggers you and brings you to another dimension. If a watch achieves that, it becomes very special to you, and you need to cherish every moment of it. At the end, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and support Bear's Genuine Enthusiast channel. And hopefully you'll like this video. And I'm looking forward to your comments that I always try to respond to as much as I can. All the best to all of you, my dear friends, and thank you.